Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of people are bringing up in the comment section in a lot of different ways, and I think there's just a misconception. So, there is a kind of scary type of truth that does happen when an avoidant loves you. And it's more common with avoidance, which is why I want to talk about this. It's not as common with anxious, preoccupied, or secure. It can be, but I'm going to talk about it in more detail so you kind of know what I'm talking about. There is an unsettling truth that when an avoidant loves you, you get all of them, right? Both good and bad. But the reason, this is with everybody, but the reason why it can be a bit more unsettling is because with avoidance, there's a lag time. And so it comes out sometimes in year 2, 3, 4, 5. And so for you, you might feel like you don't know this person anymore. And at that point, you might feel like you're not happy because you're seeing a side of them that you're not familiar with at this time. Both fearful avoidance and dismissive avoidance do struggle with this. And you're getting the healthy parts and the unhealthy parts. And I'm not talking about the deactivation strategies. So this video might be triggering and we might discuss topics that are a bit heavier. I'm not giving advice. I'm just sharing information. This is just for educational, psychological purposes. It's nothing more than that. I'm not telling you guys to do these things. I'm not telling you to stay. I'm not telling you to leave. I am just sharing information. That is all. Okay? Behind detachment is more of their personality in their maladaptive coping strategies. That's why it's different. Anxious, preoccupied, and secure individuals do not have a deactivation part of their maladaptive strategies. Some secure do maybe a little bit, but it's very, very far few between, very infrequent, okay? But anxious, preoccupied tends to not have that as much. However, avoidance, both fearful and dismissive, they tend to have a lot of themselves, who they really are, behind a lot of their strategies. And unfortunately, the more love and affection they have towards you, you're going to see what's underneath the detachment. And so you're not going to see a detached, independent individual. You probably will. You're going to see that independence, but you're going to see parts of them that maybe you didn't even necessarily fall in love with, especially if you're an anxious, preoccupied. A lot of you guys might have fallen in love with that cool exterior. And then when you see that part falling down in year 2, 3, and 4, which is one of the avoidance biggest fears, you might not be as attracted to them, or you might see them for more of who they are, to which if you are struggling with limerence or any sort of unhealthy type of connection, to some extent, I know some of you guys really don't think limerence is unhealthy. It might not be, but it's definitely not that foundational love that keeps marriages together. Those behaviors on your side start developing after the avoidant puts their walls down and you start seeing who they are, because you love them for the truth of them, not the idea of who you believe behind that detachment, right? The detachment part means that there's like a mystery, and some people are attracted to that mystery. But when you're attracted to what's behind the detachment, the real love on both of your guys' sides is starting to form. And this is with most relationships. Around this year, 3, 4, 5 is when the deeper love is formed. But with avoidance, it's a little bit more obvious, and it's not as clearly blended because you see a lot of these behaviors. So what are some of these maladaptive strategies so that you know this might be happening in your relationship? It might even be before year 2 or 3. I'm just giving examples of the typical timeline. Anger is a common one, even severe forms. Okay, outbursts, yelling, cursing, breaking things, etc. You might start seeing these things start showing up within the relationship, and you might be a little bit frightened by it, rightfully so. You might not know what to do with it. And also, you didn't expect that this is the person that you are with. That's not something that you expected was behind that wall, but it was. And I think that's what can be scary, because now you have to realize a lot of the deactivation strategies might not be as obvious now, but now there's other issues to work on. And so it feels frustrating for you because maybe you did work on some of the attachment issues, but that's not the end of the road. There's so many other things that's going on too, which come from their attachment issues, but you have to sometimes treat these things first. And I'm not saying you guys are going to treat them, but I'm saying that it's kind of like a back and forth. You're going to understand their detachment issues prior, the ones that are really causing a wall for you to get close to them. But then the second layer is going to be some of these behaviors, anger as an example. And then the layer underneath that is them letting go of control. Typically, that's some of the ways that this works. And you're going to be part of that journey as well because you're their husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whoever you are, right? The next one is any sort of use disorders. You guys know what use disorders are, I hope. Otherwise, you can Google it. I'm not going to touch too much into that, but that's very common. The next one is how controlling they are. We might have to stop here for a little bit longer, depending on how much time I have today. But most avoidants are controlling. They just are. Fearful and dismissive. Actually, anxious, preoccupied can be controlling as well. But particularly, the way dismissive avoidants are and fearful avoidants are controlling, it is not just with their relationships, right? Anxious, preoccupied, they tend to be controlling with their relationships more particularly. This is different, especially for dismissive avoidants, but fearful as well. They are controlling in general, how their environment is, where particular things go, what time they have dinner. And this is very embarrassing because this is something I used to be like a lot. And so I might have a very specific, maybe anger towards this. When you change something, you're very much against this behavior because that's who you used to be. I was like this. I still am to some extent, but I was like this, to the point where it's part of the reason that pushed people away, right? Everything was always the way I saw it. I didn't even realize how severe it was until I realized nobody was really like that around me except other avoidants. But mainly I just saw myself always controlling and calling the shots. And it's because I didn't trust anybody, and I trusted myself, and I always had my own back. So if I have my own back, I can't always even trust my environment unless I put my grubby little hands on it and fix it my way, right? That's the way it feels like, right? The environment has to be the way I put it. The cup's got to be where I see it, right? This time's got to be there. You got to leave my house at this time because after this time, I have decompression time. And before that, I have to have dinner or my snack or whatever it is. So it's all my way because that's what I thought was the way you're strong. That's the way I thought you're supposed to operate. And a lot of avoidants are like that. And we're going to touch on the details of that just about next, the details of controlling behaviors, because that's going to be something you guys are going to bump into. Eating rituals. These are more common with female avoidants, but males do it too, just not as extreme. Whereas females, it might be a little bit more disordered. Not all of them are like that, but some of them might be. But male avoidants and some females who don't have the disordered issues, they might still have rituals like, I'm going to eat at this time, not because they're necessarily obsessing over their food, but because it's part of their structure. Dinner is this time, I'm going to eat at this time, I'm going to take a walk after this. It's very controlled. And this shuts a lot of people out because that means their visitors cannot overstay because they have, something that they want to do, which is their ritual, okay? The next one is controlled sleeping habits. I actually see this more common with fearful avoidance. But, I see this less common with fearful. Well, no, it's different. How do I even explain this? Okay. With fearful avoidance, they actually have, because they have more trauma, they have more struggles with sleep. So they might still want a sleeping ritual, but they can't stick to it. That's probably the best way to put it. Dismissive avoidance and fearful avoidance both have the sleeping rituals. Sometimes fearful avoidance have an even more desire of it because they're struggling with it. But because fearful avoidance have more trauma, they tend to have a harder time sticking to this. So they might sleep in. They might wake up multiple times in the day because some of them have a lot of other struggles. PTSD, CPTSD, so that's complex. That's not even diagnosable in the United States, but I do see a difference. So I don't mind referring to that. But anything, it doesn't have to be any of those things. It might be flashbacks from another issue. It might be any sort of dissociation. In general, sleeping habits is something that a lot of avoidants like to control, but fearful avoidants just have a harder time controlling it because some of them also have insomnia, etc. Some dismissive avoidants as well, but more common with fearful. The next one is controlled timing. Exact time for dinner, when they take a shower, when they get up from their sleep, when you leave their house, when they're done with their walk. What time they have to start this meeting, what time they have to stop their meeting, what time they have to do their homework, what time they have to stop their homework, whatever it is, very controlled timing. And it's very hard to let somebody in when you have controlled timing based around your preferences only, right? So this is where you start seeing these issues because as they love you, they start becoming more of who they are. and you're going to start seeing them do these things. A really common one is if you guys don't live together, they might kick you out of their house like right before dinner time or shower time or whatever it is, not because they don't like you, because things need to be on their own time, which can be really frustrating. The next one is impatience, more common with male avoidance. And this is another way of control and anger, because anger, some part of anger is control as well. Impatience with traffic, because remember, they're timing, right? Traffic. It might be impatience with, let's say, the plumber is supposed to come to their house. Very impatient, even though, let's say the time the plumber said is from 10 to 12. And maybe it's close to 12. It hasn't been noon yet. And the avoidant is like getting really, really frustrated because they're like, oh, maybe it's going to be afternoon. I had this planned at this time. This is so frustrating. Or maybe it's like, maybe they need to get their HVAC replaced. And those things take a long time, like the whole day. And they're really upset because they wanted it done by like 5 p.m. And maybe it's summertime and it's still really hot in the house. And they're really angry, but they can't leave their house because there are people there. So they're just, impatience is boiling over, okay? And the last one is you're going to start seeing them have more negative thoughts about the world, more common with fearful avoidance. They might have thoughts like everybody cheats, everybody leaves, everybody hurts, everyone's going to hurt me, we're going to hurt each other. And sometimes this is why some fearful avoidants are more comfortable cheating on others. I'm not saying this is right, but a lot of them, as I've told you, sometimes they were born out of, let's say, a man and his mistress. Like that's their parent, the mistress, and the husband who was never actually the husband of their parent. And so they come from like a broken home, whereas they were like the secret family. A lot of fearful avoidance, that's their story, right? Or their parent might have been what is the right word for it that I can say like without censoring it, like an intimate worker, maybe. I hope you know what I mean, where that's what their mother was and they don't know who their father is, and maybe it was like a cheating situation. So some fearful avoidants feel like cheating is the norm, and that's why they might be more comfortable cheating as well, because I'm not saying that all of you guys do that. I know some of you guys are fearful avoidants, but it's harder for them to realize that that's not healthy in love because they grew up seeing it all the time. And then some fearful avoidants, they have negative thoughts about the world because they have done these things themselves. They've experienced a lot of these things in their life, whereas dismissive avoidants, they were more raised in a still not necessarily a chaotic environment, but a very strict environment. And so dismissive avoidants don't have such a negative thought about the world. They may have a negative thought about relationships, but not the world necessarily. With fearful avoidance, they think the whole world, love is just, fake, or no one really loves anyone, or everyone's going to leave. A lot of these negative thoughts, and you might start seeing that translated onto you, okay? So let's summarize some of the scary behaviors or unique behaviors that come up when an avoidant loves you: anger, use disorders, how controlling they are in general, eating rituals, controlled sleeping habits, controlled timing, impatience, and negative thoughts. I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.